We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-T-L-E-S, Eagles! Swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
I mean, it's episode 238 and it's Drunk on the Phils, but it's nothing good. You're not tuning in to hear any great stats. There's this game and this playoff kind of ended unceremoniously almost before it started. It really, Eric, the postseason literally lasted 4 days, 5 days. Didn't last very long. And you and I were just talking, not even long enough to get super upset about it, because the way that they played in those 4 games against the Mets, and you lose to the rival Mets, the team that I'm sure next year will leave no stone unturned in letting you know and remind you about not just that they took care of you, but that they took care of you in very easy fashion without a whole lot of resistance. I'm kind of at a loss for words. We've kind of moved on to the next season, right? The cycle of Philly sports is just move on to the next season. But we're here today to kind of recap everything with the Phillies this season. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's obviously disappointing. You go in, you kind of go in as the favorites, but I've said it before here. It's all about who's the hot team and who's hot at the right time. And the Mets are that team this year in baseball. We even see it. I mean, the Dodgers are obviously leading the series right now, but they've had some games where the Mets look like they can compete. So it's one of those things. The Phillies went in cold. They struggled at the end of the season. I'm not blaming the layoff. I don't think it had anything to do with that. In fact, the layoff might have been a good thing because they sucked going into the layoff. So I think, if anything, they had a chance to get healthy and regroup, and they just didn't. Their approaches were horrible.
The 3 other teams that had a bye all won.
All made it. Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that happened because I'm so sick of the dialogue of, the first round bye is negative. So I'm glad it was a team other than the Braves because those fans like to complain about the bye. But everyone else moved on. So it's one of those things where you're not blaming that. This team, the offense came up flat. The bullpen, it's hard because they were terrible in the postseason. But part of the reason why the team was where they were was because of that bullpen and how good they were. So I don't know if they were just gassed or what it was, but there's the only positive really the entire series was the starting pitching. For the most part, each starting pitcher looked pretty good. But to me, the biggest thing here is there's got to be changes made. What are they going to do? Obviously, the whole coaching staff's coming back. We heard Dabrowski and Thompson talk about that last week. But I don't really blame the coaching staff. This is on the players. I mean, the guys that struggled are veterans. There's not one guy here who hasn't been in this spot before at this point. I mean, you expect Rojas to struggle. Bohm, he had a really good regular season, but when he gets into his moods, he just seems to kind of shut down. But Turner, Realmuto, like those guys, Castellanos is really the only guy this series who showed up to hit, and that was really frustrating. But there's going to be changes. It's just a matter of what they're going to be.
I think Eric, believe it or not, like the postgame, not postgame, the postseason press conference with Dombrowski kind of left me in a worse spot. I kind of was looking for them to. It felt like when you want someone to just be accountable, and they just make excuses, and that's kind of how I kind of walked away from that press conference going, like, you can't come back with the status quo. Like, to me, there has to, like, the roster doesn't leave a whole lot of room to make drastic changes, but you're going to have to make them because you see that especially the last two seasons, the way the last two seasons ended, they ended with this team in very unceremoniously basically being like outplayed in those two spots, and outplayed by teams who have significantly less talent. And that, to me, was the hardest part about that post-mortem of the season, was like, we're bringing the whole coaching staff back. We're bringing everybody back. We're like, I would have at least wanted you to say, like, hey, give us a minute. We have to evaluate where we're at based on the way that the last two seasons have ended. We're going to do this press conference in a month. Give us a month to kind of regroup, because I really didn't feel like I heard a whole lot of, like, and I know that that's like that. It's kind of unrealistic for me to kind of expect that to happen in a week. But at the same time, I didn't hear any kind of like direction. We got to get better at the plate. We got to get better at taking pitches, because we'll talk about it in a minute. But like, you're seeing the difference between the Phillies and Dodgers, because the Phillies and Dodgers, to me, have very equivalent talent rosters. The Dodgers have the more top heavy with Ohtani and Betts and Freeman and stuff, but there's enough talent that the talent group as a team in the field is pretty equivalent, but they're very, very disciplined at the plate. They don't swing at anything outside this. Like, I think in those first couple of games, I think it was like they swung at like 6 pitches outside the zone. Like the Phillies did. I feel like there were Phillies that did that in a game.
We did it in one inning. Like,
yeah, forget a game. In
yeah,
one inning,
exactly.
It's like, I don't know. I just didn't. It didn't leave me feeling real great, and it left me kind of questioning like a lot about, and we'll talk about it later, like the future of this team. Like, what do you do next season?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. I think, like, you're right. Like, doing it a week after the season ends, right? They basically wanted to say, okay, are we bringing Thompson back? And Topper, who do you still want your coaching staff back? Basically, that's, I think, what they were going with there. Dombrowski is really, really good at not giving anything away. Like, he is he can talk, and he sounds really good and everything, but he's really good at kind of talking but not really saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what he was doing there. I think that was intentional. He's someone who does not like to show his cards early. I can't imagine that this team, with Dombrowski, who's very aggressive, Middleton, who obviously is aggressive, I can't imagine they sit here and just run it back. They have to do something to change something up here. But the problem is like, so many of the problems, right, are the core of the team. So it's really tough on what to do. Like, I mean, obviously, I keep seeing on Twitter, especially after his winner last night, but Juan Soto, right? I mean, obviously that's something that I don't think anyone would have a problem with the Phillies trying to bring him in. The only issue is, how does New York let him go? Number one, and number two, like, I just feel like you can't constantly add huge mega contracts.
I mean, how many?
I would love to do it.
Yeah, right. I think somewhere I think I heard like Jim Salisbury talking about the third tier of that salary threshold comes with, like, not only does it come with the financial penalties, but it also comes with, like, it moves all of your draft slots down 10 spots. Mm-hmm. Like, I get this feeling like they really, really don't want to go over that third tier of that threshold. I think you're going to have to see this front office get really, really creative.
Yeah.
In terms of not only who they bring in, but maybe being a little bit more creative with how this team approaches their day-to-day lineup. Like you heard Rob Thompson throughout the season talk about like they're trying to get ready for October, right? Everything was with that intention of getting ready for October. Now, mind you, they had two opportunities that I'm like just remembering off the top of my head in specific games with the Mets. The one game that they gave up in London where they had the lead and they give up the lead and they lose that game. And then later on in the season, and you go up to Queens and you lose 3 out of 4. Like you win any one of those 4 games and this Mets team doesn't make the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah.
Like you had so many times during the season where you gave guys the day off. Like there were a couple times where you gave just, off the top of my head, because again, the season is super long, but I remember the one game where they gave Harper and Real Muto the day off, and you had an opportunity to win a game. They were down 1 with a guy on in the 9th inning, right? So you're not asking the guy to come in and potentially play multiple innings. You were asking him to come in and bat, and he didn't. And that's a Rob Thompson thing. That's a when I'm giving my guys the day off, I'm giving them the day off, and I get that. At the same time, if this season does not teach you anything, it should teach you that those games matter. That like your record was not going to catch the Dodgers, but your record could also affect the other teams that get into the playoffs. And then like that Brewers matchup would have significantly favored the Phillies. The Mets, their junk lefties destroyed this lineup. And what's crazy is like it destroyed this lineup. The tactical approach was the same exact approach that the Diamondbacks like enforced in that NLCS last year. And now you're going out a whole round earlier.
Yeah, there's a manual on how to pitch to this team, right? I mean,
it is not rocket science.
No, it's not. And the Diamondbacks cracked the code last year. The Mets just followed suit, and it worked. The offense wasn't scary any game. I mean, game 2, obviously, you had those home runs, but like if it wasn't for those, if it wasn't for those 2 swings or 3 swings, this team gets swept. I mean, I know obviously that happened, so like you can't really say it, but at the same time, like every game was just frustrating. Like there was not really many times where I was excited during that series. And obviously like watching the pitching, yeah, like watching Zach Wheeler deal, I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like he's on fire today. We're gonna win this game. He's not gonna give up any runs. But problem is we don't score any runs either. Nola was iffy, right? Like he had a couple bad innings, but like when he was locating down in the zone, his 2-seamer was running so nicely. He had so many good punch outs on that 2-seamer there. Sanchez obviously pitched well, and Ranger, it was way better than I think anyone thought. I mean, I knew he threw a lot of pitches. He struggled. He had the bases loaded a couple times, got out of it, but like the pitching was fine. It's just that that was the only exciting thing about this series. Like the offense, there was even when guys were up like Harper and Schwarber, I'm like, they're not gonna do like in my head. I'm like, if they get a hit, cool, but like I'm not expecting anything, and that's not how it should be from your 2 guys who are superstars on your team.
You're spot on. Like there's no way to slice it in terms of this team. This series was it was hard to watch. Like even the game that they won didn't really feel like as dramatic as that game was. You gave up the lead 3 times in that game.
Yep.
Like that game was like pure angst and heartache. And you get that. And listen, Castellanos, I got no issues with him. Like he's the guy that legit showed up for you every day. played every game, played,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but played every inning. And in the postseason, in those 4 games, bats 412. Like, I will not ask for anything else. Harper batted 333. He got on.
Yeah,
Like,
he
he
did.
was on base. But when everybody else around you looks as bad as they did, Schwarber, outside of that one leadoff home run, didn't really do anything. Didn't really get on. Turner, same thing, right? Like, the way that the season ends with his like wild swing and a miss is really, really just emblematic of the rest of this roster, right? You got Turner, who batted 200, Bohm, who batted 077, Stott batted 182, Marsh batted 077,
Yeah, I
Rojas
mean,
batted 200,
wow. Yeah,
and
it's just
Real
like
Muto doesn't get a hit.
not the entire time. That he was. I know, like defensively, like he's and the way he controls the pitching staff. I get that's why he's there, but I put so much of this series on Bohm and Real Muto because guys got on base. Harper and Castellanos got on base a few times, and both of those guys, Real Muto was just probably going to strike out every time, and Bohm was going to swing first or second pitch and hit a little stupid dribbler down the third base line or pop up to second base. It was you could have written the script. I mean, it was that predictable how these guys were going to get out. And then you get past that, it's like, well, Stott didn't do anything all season. Rojas, you can't rely on. Marsh, it looks like he's lost up there. Like, not one guy was other than Castellanos. And you're right, like Harper hit well, just didn't hit for power, but he was getting on base at least. But there's no one else to even rely on or even think might do something. Like, it's I'm just like at a loss for words how frustrating this lineup was given how it's constructed. It's so all or nothing, and
Yeah.
when they're hot and they're on fire, damn, it is fun to watch. But when
Yeah, I
they
mean,
are cold, it
that
is
first
so
stretch of
frustrating.
that first stretch of games was incredible to watch. We
Yeah,
could not rattle off the statistics fast enough.
right.
It was really, really fun to watch. And then they came back from London and really just they never got their mojo back after that London trip. It was just bad.
Yeah.
But to go back to your starting pitching, right? The combination of Wheeler, Sanchez, Nola, and Suarez, they threw 19 in a third and had an ERA of 2.8.
Yeah, that's
I
enough to
will,
win a postseason series.
against the Mets.
Yep.
Against, and again, the Mets truly are the hottest. They were the hottest team coming in. I think they were like 25 games over 500 going into the, in that, since that same inflection point coming
Yeah.
back from London.
London. Yep.
But you had enough to win a game. And here's the alternative statistic that your bullpen ERA was 11.37.
Which is the worst in all the playoffs.
Yeah. And not worse by like a little bit, but like
by like 5 runs.
Worse by like I'm trying to find it because I put it somewhere, but like worse by like 5, 6, 7 runs. Like, I don't think there was another team that had a bullpen ERA like over 5.
Mm-mm.
Like, that's just like.
And the frustrating thing is, like, the Mets bullpen was gettable, like past like Stanek and everyone. But the problem is we didn't get to the bullpen because freaking Sean Manaea, by the way, did you know he throws across? How many times did the announcers talk about that? If they talked about that one more freaking time.
It was the overemphasis on it was like.
It was like an obsession. I'm like, okay, yeah, we got it. And you know what? He's destroying us. It's cool. Yeah, he throws from the other side of the mound during the bullpen. Got it. But I mean, you throw Quintana and Manaea out there, and they each go like 7 innings. It's like, all right, cool. Well, I was hoping to get to Budo or Maton or one of those guys, but I mean,
You
you
barely
just
saw any
built a
of them.
bridge to Stanek, and then Diaz was erratic, but like, good news for him. We swing at everything, so be as erratic as you want. Just throw 100, and we have no idea where the ball's going. We're just going to swing.
Yeah, and listen, I'm looking at this stat from Jason Stark, and this I can't remember which game it was. It was whatever the Dodgers game on October 13th. So that was game 1 a week ago, maybe.
Yeah,
Game
I
1.
think so. Yeah,
Through the first 5 innings.
yeah, it was against Senga. Yes.
Yeah, through the first 5 innings, the Dodgers saw 85 pitches.
Yeah.
And they swung at 6 outside the strike zone. Like that, within the first, you didn't even need a full game. Within the first 5 innings, you knew exactly the approach that you needed to be able to do it. And they literally just did not have the self-control to be able to do it. They literally couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like pressing or what. I mean, Dombrowski alluded to it a little bit in the in his press conference, but the chasing. I mean, and this has been a thing. It was the same overall message at the end of last season. Cassidy actually did cut down on chasing a little bit and cut down on his strikeout rate. I remember doing some research on that during this season, but everyone else, like no one else did. And I don't know if they were pressing because you go in, they won 95 games, right? It's like I shouldn't be as angry at this team as I am, but it's just like the way it ended. I mean, if you have a 95 win season, I think they had 7 or 8 all-stars. They win their first division title in 13 years. Like there's a lot of good things to say about what happened this season, but it's just the way it ended, right? It's like it's recency bias, and you just think how much talent was wasted there by just going up there and swinging like cavemen, like having no approach up there and just everyone trying to hit a home run or trying to pull the ball or whatever it was, whatever they were trying to do. I mean, like Kevin Long preaches the approach to them, right? They're just not doing it. Like I get Kevin Long was on the hot seat here, right? Because it's been the same thing, and they're not changing their approach. If these were a bunch of young guys, yeah, it's like, all right, well, Kevin Long, how's he not getting to them? But these guys are guys who some of them, have 10 years of big league experience already.
Yeah.
Like these guys need to know how to go up and approach a freaking at bat. Like you can't just rely on a guy to be like, hey, take a pitch. It's like, yeah, we know, but we're just not going to do it.
Well, and here's my thought, and this is one of the things I want to talk about when we talk about the future. You have to get these guys to get a different approach at the plate.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that I'm going to, and the guy that I feel like maybe on some level you might need to start thinking about maybe a 1 or 2 year extension is Schwarber.
Yeah.
Because if you look at how he changed his approach at the plate. Now, did it play out in these 4 games in the playoffs? Absolutely not. But he really did change the way that his approach at the plate every time he was coming up during the season. And you saw that. You saw him start to spray the ball. You saw him start to put the ball in the gap a little bit more. You saw him, the 16 times that he leads off the game with a home run, they're 14-2. And he's not a young guy, right? So if he's in a leadership role, right, like he might have the caveat to be able to say to Castellanos, or not to Castellanos, to say to Turner, like, yo, like you got to stop trying to hit grand slams on every at bat with no one on base, and just hit the ball. Because if he just puts the ball in play, he's like a silver slugger type guy. Like you saw at the beginning of the year, right? The conversation with Turner was like, if he continues this pace, he'll be in line for the MVP. Like you have some veteran leadership on that roster to be able to go to those guys and be like, I need you to do this, right? Harper has got to be able to go to him and be like, I need you on base. Like, I can't have you swinging out of your shoes. I need you on base. So I don't know what you got to do. I don't know if you got to go camp out in Clearwater all winter and figure it out and like see like a million curveballs and a million sliders and a million changeups so that you can just stand there and just not swing. Like, I want you to go up there without a bat in your hand and just see those pitches and start to train your brain that you don't have to swing at all those pitches, because everything was so bad out of the zone. And once you got past Castellanos in that lineup, you just rolled out outs. That 5 through 9 slot, and I'm looking at this stat from Matt Gelb, the 5 through 9 hitters in this lineup went 8 for 69.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, and and to go back to the bullpen real quick, because this is just part of his little stat thing. The bullpen allowed 16 runs in 4 games. Like you just created this incessant recipe for losing the game. And then the other one is a stat courtesy of Kevin Kincaid, where you look at the last 6 playoff games that they've played, the 2 games against the Diamondbacks and then the 4 games against the Mets. In 5 of those 6 games, they scored 2 or fewer runs.
I did see that one. Yeah, and when you're not scoring runs and you have the bullpen giving up runs at that rate, I mean, you just can't win, right? I mean, it's mathematically impossible.
It's a wonder why some of those games were even within reach.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of those games were like as bad as you played in Game 4. You were up 1-0 with all your bullpen ready to go.
Yep.
Now that decision to bring in Estevez boggles my mind.
Yeah,
you bring in a guy who's a fly ball pitcher up against the guy who's a fly ball hitter, and then you throw the guy who's probably going to be the runner-up for the MVP and Frankie Lindor. You throw him 5 straight fastballs, and you think that at some point he's not going to catch one?
I really don't know. I mean, I don't know if you look at a lot of these guys, a lot of what managers are doing this postseason, and they're using their closer in that 8th inning basically just to get you to the 9th. But the problem is, I feel like, and we talked about this, I think, heading into the postseason, that Estevez was like kind of one of the shakier guys up in that back end that I was kind of nervous about, because he has that tendency to give up that, like, he got out of a lot of stuff this year, but he also has that tendency to give up that long fly ball. And we saw it. Unfortunately, the bases were loaded at the most inopportune time when he did it. So I don't know if, like, again, it's just, it's frustrating that it was him, but at the same time, like, I don't know if anyone else would have been better. You know what I mean? Because, like, I didn't have any confidence in anyone at that point. I mean, and
No.
This is how
But,
down
like,
I was about this team. Like, I didn't want, like, even Hoffman, who I trusted all year, and Strahm, who I trusted all year. I'm like, you can bring in anyone right now, and I the result may have been the same. I don't even know. It was just so deflating.
Eric, I mean, now we're rattling off bad statistics in the opposite direction, but Hoffman's ERA in this postseason was 40.5.
Yeah, it was not good. Only good thing about that is maybe he brings down his asking price this offseason a little bit.
Right? Listen, Strahm was equally as bad. He had an ERA of 36. Alvarado had an ERA of 27. Like, this was supposed to be your stalwart. Like, we should be able to win a game 1-0 because we have Hoffman and Strahm and Estevez and Alvarado, and like you built like a mountain of resources in that bullpen, and you got yourself to a point where you're looking at that and you're going, I don't know what was worse, the bullpen or the hitting. Like, they were like really, really equally as bad. The other thing I want to talk about is the trade deadline. Because when you go back and you look at the trade deadline, and I know now it's come out, right, that they were in conversations with the White Sox, with Crochet. I'm sure that there were probably nibbles around Luis Robert. But Dave Dombrowski really spent this trade deadline like nibbling around the edges, right? When your trade acquisition, right, is, you bring in Moises Chassé, you bring in Seth Johnson, you bring in Tanner Banks, you bring in Estevez, and you bring in Austin Hayes. And you got next to nothing out of them.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited about Estevez at the time just because of what he was doing in LA. So, and I think that's the thing with trade deadlines is, like, the way I think about it is, obviously it was a big swing and miss, like, but Hayes was hurt most of the time he was here or out with that kidney infection. So I don't really know if that's like a fair representation of the type of player that he actually is. But yeah, I mean, he would. And speaking of terrible in the postseason, Austin Hayes needs to be added to that Bohm and Real Muto list, because he was another one who was an automatic out every single time.
Yeah.
But Tanner Banks was actually okay. for like that middle inning, like low leverage role. I felt like he was actually pretty good this season. But yeah, and also I think in July at the by the All-Star break, like this team was still not really fully into that like August funk yet. So like I don't know if these guys, like I think the front office is probably like, well, these guys are still pretty good. Like, do we have to add something big like that? I think now it shows that yeah, I mean they probably should have. But like I'm glad they didn't get Luis Robert, because did you see what his stats were like throughout the second half of the season? He would have actually fit in perfect with this lineup.
Yeah.
It would have been poetic almost.
The guy that I remember us talking about was Brent Rooker. Like Brent Rooker to me, like and I know the conversation around him was his defense in the field. There was a reason why he was DHing for the A's.
Yeah.
At this point, it could not have been that much worse.
Yeah. The only thing I know the A's were asking a ton of money for him, or not money, but because the thing is he's under club control for a little bit still, and they have no reason to just hand him over. So that was the tough part. But yeah, I would have loved Rooker.
Yeah, I mean, it was when you've got Bohm in a game and in his 4 at bats takes 5 pitches, it's just oh God, like the game against Manaea where Manaea like just dances around the strike zone and barely has anything that touches the strike zone, and it's just swing and miss after swing and miss after swing and miss. It just makes you shake your head.
Yeah, I mean,
it starts to make me think about like some really drastic changes, and my mind took it took my mind to a really, really crazy place. I'm gonna share it with you in a minute.
Yeah, it's just frustrating, the way the season ended. Because, like I said earlier, like there's a lot of things to look at this season that were positives. It just it stinks the way it ended. Last year obviously it stunk, but at least you got you got the wild card round, you got the NLDS. Like, hey, they were looking good, and they were even looking good the first couple of games against Arizona. Then all of a sudden, Arizona figured out how to pitch them. This year, there was just like never even. Like I said, like there was just no excitement. Like there was never a time where I'm like, oh, we're gonna bring this back. We might be down 2 runs, and I'm like, how are we getting them? If it's not Harper and Castellanos or Schwarber hitting a home run, what's going to happen? Because everyone else is was next to useless. So it's just frustrating, But you're right. There has to be some sort of changes, but I feel like they're a little bit handcuffed in what those changes can really be.
All right, you ready for my proposition?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. So in this scenario, Harper goes back out in the outfield, even though he's a Gold Glove. My mind is in like a really bad place right now. So like Harper goes back out to right. Castellanos goes over to left. You sign Alex Bregman. You put him at third. You move Alec Boehm over to first. You put Trey Turner in center. You put Stott at second. Or you put Stott at short. You put some, like, I don't know, like,
yeah.
There's to me, like, it's almost like in my mind, like as it started to evolve, like I'm like, all right, there's way too many moving pieces. There's way too many guys that would have to switch positions. But like, this is where my mind is, because it's like they're really, like you were just saying, they are really handcuffed with the guys that they have on this roster. But I feel like on some level, you have to, like, I don't see Marsh is not, to me, like, as great as he is for this daycare. Like, he's not, like, I don't need to pay a guy to be a mediocre to below average outfielder just so that he can throw water and sunflower seeds on a guy after they win a game. And Stott really, if Stott can get back to 2 years ago, a year ago, that's a guy I can play at second or at short. Because I think if, moving Turner to the outfield and moving Stott to second and, on some level, I know Aiden Miller is not ready, but like getting a spot in the infield ready for him sooner than later. You would be better defensively.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think one of Stott or Bohm will not be here, not necessarily this season, but by 2026, because they're gonna have to find room for Aiden Miller somewhere, assuming he continues to progress the way he has. But it actually works out because both of them are kind of getting off. They're almost out through. Well, I think Stott still has a couple more years. He's a little bit younger, but with arbitration wise, Bohm's still kind of cheap. But like, I'd be okay seeing if I do like Alex Bregman. Like, I like the idea of maybe trying to bring him in somewhere just to add something to this lineup. Maybe you try to move Bohm. I've heard I've heard some chatter. I don't think it actually happens, but people have talked about different scenarios there. So I don't know, but like, because you think like vibes, right? This Philly. How many times the last couple of years have we heard about vibes? Well, vibes didn't do anything this year. The vibes were terrible in the postseason. Stott and Bohm and Marsh didn't do anything to bring vibes, right? Stubbs doesn't play, so you got to get away from that idea. And we get enamored, like, I think sometimes with these players, but like you got to make a change somewhere. And I don't know what you do, but like, I feel like Marsh is a solid like fourth or platoon outfielder. I don't want him playing every day, but I feel like you could use him in kind of the role he was being used like in the second half. Bohm, I think you're a little bit more handcuffed with because while he plays first base a little bit, I don't think he's particularly good. I think he just got okay at third base.
Right.
I don't know about moving positions for him again. Stott is great defensively. I really like him there. I would love to see what he does next year. If he does not take a step forward, then you got to think about something there too. But I mean, eventually, like, Aiden Miller is going to be coming up, right? He's playing shortstop right now still. I know when they drafted him, it was kind of talk that he moved to third base. But if you can play him at shortstop, that's probably a good thing because then you can move Turner to second. And then if Bohm, it depends on who you kind of keep. You need to open up a spot somewhere in your infield at some point.
Yeah.
And I know there's been chatter about Turner moving to the outfield. That he might be okay there. I'd like to give him another year or two at short though, just because we're paying him all this money to play a premier position. So
and part of it, Eric, I do think that there probably was a conversation behind closed doors.
Yeah,
this is where I want to play, because he did get more money. He did get offered more money. The contract in San Diego was with the dollars. I don't know if the years were, but the dollars were definitely more in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that was one of the things. Like, it's like you're saying, it's definitely more of a premier position. He can run out the same statistics that he runs out year after year after year, and probably be in the conversation to at the end of his career be talked about as a potential Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah, you just got to stay healthy at this point,
right? He's got to stay healthy, but like, if he's having those same stat lines playing center field, left field, probably not. Like, it's that premier infield position that kind of elevates those statistics. So like, I don't know, like Stubbs is another guy. That I don't like. I would rather you play Rafael Marchand. I saw enough from him during this year. I don't need the vibes to be better. I need the play to be better.
Exactly. Like, the vibes were fun for a while, but like, that was also because they were playing well.
Right.
But you don't win a World Series with vibes. I'm sorry. It's just like, and we have to, like, it happened with the 08 team, right? Like, we all love, you get enamored with certain teams, certain players. And I remember being, it's sad when you start having to get rid of guys and everything like that, and guys go away. But it's the evolution of a team, right? You can't keep running back the same team over and over and over again, and with getting worse results each time, and not make a change. So they're going to do something. I'm curious because there's a couple interesting options out there. They have to. The biggest thing that they have to fix is the outfield. To me, the infield. I think you can run back a lot of the infield. If Bohm figures it out and plays like he did from April through August, he's a fine player.
Yeah.
Stott, I don't think he get worse, right? He took a major step back this year. He's got to get at least a little bit better. You know what you're getting from Harper. You know what you're getting from Turner for the most part. Outfield, though, yeah. At what point are they going to say, okay, Rojas is not going to get better offensively? But again, in the minor leagues, you got Justin Crawford, who's waiting in the wings. Not probably not making the team out of spring training, but he's like a year ahead of Aiden Miller. Defensively, you're not losing much from having him there, and you gain a little bit offensively. Now, he's not going to be – I don't think he's going to be a major like power hitter, but he's going to be a guy who can get on base, and when he's on base, he's going to make things happen, just like Rojas. But the problem is you got to get on base to make things happen. So,
yeah, I think there's going to be at least one move this offseason that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. I don't know what it is.
It's got to be a change.
I'm not sure where that move happens. I'm not sure where it is, but there's definitely a move that's going to make somebody uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and when I say somebody, the fan base is going to be uncomfortable, because you cannot continue to have the same exact performance play out, and the approach looked. It's really the irony in how the Phillies season ended compared to how it ended last year, and how the Eagles season ended and how it started. Like, the irony is, like, we thought we were getting something different. Psych, it's the same exact thing. Yeah. But I like the idea of Justin Crawford. Like, that to me excites me. So, like, if you end up, like, I know they basically sent Rojas directly from South Philadelphia to South Florida, and they basically said, just I need you to work on the hitting all winter long. I need you to get better, because that has to change in order for him to continue to. You can't hide him in center field and bat ninth and not get any production from him. Like, you can't say that his defensive metrics are going to outweigh his offensive production. You're getting to the point where he's going to be going into his third season, right? It'll be like 2.5 years of service, but like, this will be his third season in the majors. We have to get past that conversation. He has to be a guy who can be productive at the plate. I don't care if that means you bunt. I don't care if that means you get better at taking pitches. I don't care if your approach gets better. I don't care what it is. But, like, if you saw when he got on base, it was like an automatic double, because he was able to steal and what. Now, listen, I'm going to put that with a little caveat there, right? When he was smart on a base pass and not getting picked off, right? He was able to advance and put himself in scoring position really quickly. But he was. You saw that he became an offensive liability. If you're a team that has World Series aspirations, you can't hide holes in your lineup. You just can't. You can't, because at the biggest times, at the biggest moments, those things get exposed, and they get exposed so quickly. And I kind of wonder, like, where did this trip, like, where and when did this just fall off the cliff to be able to be in the position that we're in? Because, like, you're talking about making major changes on a team that just won the division for the first time in a really long time. But I like the idea of Crawford. Crawford, to me, is if you can package Rojas with somebody and potentially get back starting pitching, and then that makes your starting pitching better. If you package him for position player, relief pitcher, like, you're going to have to be really, really creative with this roster in order to remake it so that the offensive approach is better. You need what you're seeing with the Yankees, with the Mets, with the Indians, with the Dodgers. You need to get guys on base. You need to create traffic in those high leverage moments. And you need guys that are going to put the ball in play. Like, that's how these teams are producing runs. There are a lot of, like, and is there anything else Phillies related before we just touch on the playoffs?
Only other thing that positive is Andrew Painter pitching in the Arizona Fall League right now. Arm looks good. Results aren't necessarily there yet, but I mean, I don't really care. Like, give up your runs now.
Yeah.
He's had 2 outings, 2 innings each. I think he's had 2 strikeouts each time. Or three, maybe 3 in the first one. Either way, arm looks really good. He's top. The first game he topped out. I think he hit 100 like 3 times, and the second time he was topping out like 98.7 or something like that. So that's kind of what you want to see from him. Because I really think. I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any question about it, but like he's going to be on the big league roster at some point in 2025. I don't know if it's going to be right out of spring training or not. If they're going to want to give him some time to ramp up in Lehigh Valley or Reading for a little bit. But I'm fine with that. If they want to give Walker a couple start, because really that first month of the season, you have a few off days. So really you probably only need a 5th pitcher,
Right.
2 or 3 times between the opening day and that middle part of May. So give Walker a couple chances. If he still stinks, then you bring up Painter and you figure out what to do with Walker after that.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, I feel like you just got to cut your losses. Like, you got to write the dude a check and you got to tell him, like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Because, again, that at the end, not to kind of open new wounds, but, like, to go back to, like, there were games down the stretch where you essentially every 5th day it was a scheduled loss.
Yeah.
Because you just kind of kept tossing them out there and kept throwing them. You got production from that 5th starter early in the season when you had Spencer Turnbull and you had guys that were giving you good production, but down the stretch you gave away games.
Yep.
And I think the idea of having Andrew Painter available, he's coming off this injury. He's probably going to be on an innings limit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You starting him later. Like if you remember how the Braves handled Strider, right? You bring him up late in the season, and then he's a guy that you have as a weapon going into that June, July, August, September, that last 3-4 month stretch going into the playoffs where he could really be an asset and give your rotation a boost going into that playoff push. And if you can get anything remote, like his stuff and his activity on the mound really does give me a lot of feels of like Strider-ish. Not Skeens, but like definitely somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, because he's even got plus secondary stuff. Like, I mean, his fastball is obviously his bread and butter, but he has plus secondary stuff too. So it's like he can. I mean, he could realistically be, because I mean, he was about to be, last season if he wasn't hurt. But like, he's already got the stuff to be a major league pitcher, and I think an effective one. So I'm really excited to see that. I mean, at least we have. So there's going to be a couple little things that kind of on the peripherals that you can kind of look for, coming into next season that are good storylines. Before we even deal with free agents or any trades or anything like that. But it's just when we said it, they got to do something, they got to change something, and the starting pitching, like I said, looks to be a strength. Why not, continue to make that a strength?
Most definitely. All right, Eric, playoffs. This second round of this NLC, the LCS round of this playoffs has been really, really exciting.
Really awesome.
Let's talk about the American League first. The Yankees wrap up. They wrap up the AL pennant last night. I really my heart goes out to Cleveland. They really did battle the Yankees in this series, even though it doesn't really, like, they do lose the series 4-1.
Yeah.
I mean, the one game that they win in an epic walk-off, tied in the 9th, home run in the 10th, like they just, this Yankees lineup though, they have this very, very unique combination of power and contact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really do, and you're seeing it. That series, like you said, I mean, it was crazy. It only lasted 5 games. Every game was within like 2 or 3 runs, and every game I felt like there was like some sort of back and forth. It was one of the best playoff series I remember seeing. I not a Yankees fan, but you got to respect what they're able to do. I mean, that combination of Soto and Judge in the middle of your lineup, how do you beat that? I mean, Judge I know has never been like a major but you still got to be careful with the guy because you leave a pitch out over the middle of the plate, he can hit it, to another state. So, um, having that combo in the middle, but then also having guys like you said who can get on base. You're getting production from, and they're getting production from guys who, you like Anthony Rizzo. Where's he been? But he gets a hit last night, right? He kind of
Yep.
helped set up that like you're getting production from guys who, yeah, maybe you wouldn't expect production from. Whereas other lineups in the postseason were not necessarily able to produce that.
I mean,
Not naming any
you're
names.
also seeing prime Giancarlo Stanton too. Like
Yeah.
some
What?
of
Yes.
some of his,
Thank
like
you.
he has been like almost like a sinkhole
Yeah.
like most of the season. Playoffs, lights are bright. He absolutely destroys baseballs in October.
Yeah, what? And it's painful to watch him run the bases. I mean, the guy needs a cane to get around the bases at this point. But he's at the plate. You're right. He's destroying these balls, and it's I'll say I don't like the Yankees, but the way they've been playing, they've been a fun team. They have been fun to watch. So that was a really good series.
Their bullpen is kind of like a conglomerate of like a bunch of guys that you really are not like these huge big name household names. But they're legit just guys that come in and get the job done.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if it could not have played out any better for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't matter how this NLCS ends, because you're either going to get 2 premier bi-coastal franchises in the Yankees Dodgers, or you're going to get a Subway Series.
Yeah, it works out well for MLB regardless.
So you're going to see the Dodgers Mets tonight in Game 6. How does this play out for you? Because they're going back. They go back to LA for 2 games
to finish it out. And I think it's going to be really hard for the Mets to win 2 in LA. I mean, you look at both, this series is the complete opposite of the ALCS. I mean, it's been a fun series to watch, but it's like the Dodgers win in a blowout one game, the Mets win in a blowout the next game, the Dodgers win in a blowout. It's like, it's they're like taking turns almost. I don't see the Mets winning 2 in LA. But, I mean, the Dodgers just lost a game that they, kind of when you have Flaherty on the mound, they lost that Game 5 and he gave up 8 runs. Like, that was a major, major turning point, I think, in that series. Because now, the Dodgers they're going with a bullpen game in Game 6. I mean, you talk about the differences between the Phillies and the Dodgers. And while I would much rather have the Dodgers approach, I would take the Phillies pitching staff 100 times out of 100. I mean, yeah, Flaherty's been really good. Yamamoto's been, he's been injured, so it's been interesting there. But like the amount of injuries they have, and the fact that you're going into a potential clinching game and you don't have a freaking starting pitcher,
it's wild, man.
I know there's a lot of injuries. Like, I know it's not necessarily like their fault, but like, wow, I can't imagine. Like, if the Phillies were going into Game 6 up 3-2 and they didn't, and they're going up, we're gonna start Kerkering today, and then piggyback off of that. I'd be like, what are we doing here?
We're gonna go Kerkering, Strom, Tanner Banks. Like, we're just gonna
I'm like,
parade of.
But when you have an offense you have an offense who can actually put up runs, right? So it's one of those things where they could still win it. So you don't really count them out just because like Mookie's been on fire. Ohtani is Ohtani, right? Freddie can't. He's like Stanton right now. He can't run, but he can still hit. And they're getting production from all parts of the lineup, right? Like Andy Pages the other day had like 3 RBIs out of the 9 hole. So it must be nice to have something going on like that. But so it's going to be a fun series.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. We've talked about this. Like, I hate the Mets with every fiber of my being. But right now, like, you could tell they're the hot team. They deserve to be there. I mean, they are with Lindor leading off, and Vientos has been crushing the ball this postseason. Like, they're getting production. They made it work. I think their pitching staff is now getting exposed by a competent approach at the plate. But it's one of those things where you never really know. But I think the Dodgers win in 7.
7. Okay,
yeah,
so
I think the Mets take it tonight because I hate a bullpen game. And honestly, if you're doing a bullpen game in the postseason, you deserve to win.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when I look at the way that team is constructed, it's really hard to make a case. And to go back to something that we talked about earlier, right? If you can make a case for a guy making changes to his approach, right? Look at the way that Lindor has embraced that approach to move into the leadoff role, and try to take the at-bats to contact and try to make sure that he's getting on base so that the guys coming up behind him have somebody on there to move. There's a lot of things that you hope that the guys that are on this team that are sitting at home that are watching these guys, you hope that they're seeing the same thing, that like, all right, well, if I know that a guy like Lindor, who's the runner-up for the MVP, can, switch his approach and really change the way that I'm approaching each individual at bat to make sure that it's the best opportunity for my team to score runs, then you would hope that guys like Trey Turner, who's in almost a very, very similar position, because I would, there is some argument to, maybe move him to that leadoff role and to maybe bump Schwarber down a little bit in the lineup. Maybe you bat him behind Harper so that there's a little bit of protection, but then you get into that lefty part. Like, but I mean, seeing Ohtani on the big stage,
it's fun.
It's everything that we wanted from him when he was playing with the Angels. You just never got to see it because they never played an important game in his entire time that he was there. And it's such a shame because you would hope that, like, you would have hoped that he and Mike Trout could have been really good together and been really good in the postseason together, because those two guys together in their prime were really, really good. The rest of the team absolutely sucked.
Yeah.
And they never played now you're seeing him. And, this is going to be emblematic of, the next handful of years to come. You're going to see him on the big stage. And as crazy as it is, in a year where he's going to win the MVP as the DH, he's going to pitch next year.
Yep. They won't maybe have to use the bullpen game.
Right. And you don't need the bullpen game because you're going to see him every fifth day on the mound and hit. So I just, the baseball fan in me is excited to be able to see him on the big stage in the prime time in the World Series. But in my heart, I hope both teams lose.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't like any of the remaining teams in the playoffs. But again, other than the way the Phillies played, like, this postseason has been really good. Like, think about the story with the Tigers, moving on and getting up there. The Royals almost knocking out the Tigers knocking out the Astros. The Royals almost knocking the Yankees out and forcing into a game 5. Like, it's been other than the Phillies Mets series, it's been a really good postseason. So it's been a lot of fun to watch. Like, I mean, I'm tuning in every pitch and watching it almost as intently as I would with the Phillies game, except I obviously no matter who wins, it doesn't affect my mental state as much. But
the emotional attachment to every pitch is not there. But but listen, I'm the same way. I'm dialed in, and like Kip got upset with me the other night because he's like, "Dad, who's playing tonight?" And I'm going, and here I'm thinking like, "Oh, he's talking like Phillies, Sixers, Eagles, Flyers." And I'm like, "Oh, bud, none of the Phillies sports teams are playing tonight." And I came home and I flipped the game on, and he was like, "Dad, you told me nobody was playing tonight." And I'm going, "Oh, bud, I didn't know. You and I, like, we approach sports very differently." I'm watching like it like I could watch, like, I was coming home from school and throwing on the Tigers Astros playoff game.
I was putting it on at the end of my day during dismissal.
Right? It didn't matter to me. But like you're right. Like the storylines, the John Quincy Noel home run, and not even just the home run, but the call of the home run.
That was great.
Was incredible. Like talking about like the Christmas gifts and like having to be the best present under the tree. And I thought he missed a really, really, really big opportunity to do something really funny. I thought it would be really funny if like the next day he showed up with like a Pedro Serrano jersey.
Yeah.
Like the home runs that were hit in Cleveland were like no doubt about it. And that is not a little ballpark. That is that's a big ballpark with a giant wall.
And especially left field. That's a tall wall. Yep.
Those balls were crushed. They were not like right over the edge. They were like 10, 12, 15 rows deep.
Yep.
But I'm as a baseball fan, the theater has been incredible. And I hope that just continues. I'm not rooting for anybody, but I would love to see a Dodgers-Yankees playoff or World Series.
Me too.
Just from the simple fact that I feel like those are the two most talented teams left. And I do agree with you, though. I think the Dodgers take care of it. I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's tonight or tomorrow. Or Game 7. The theater of Game 7 would be a great thing.
And one extra night of baseball too, because the World Series doesn't start until Friday. So it's like I kind of need something to do. The Flyers are obviously on. The Sixers start Wednesday, but I would like another thing to watch.
Most definitely, Eric. Something on anything on the way out?
I usually say something about go Phils here, but I got nothing there. So go Flyers, I guess. I don't know.
Flyers, go Birds.
You got the Birds today. Yeah.
You got Saquon Barkley in the return to MetLife today. You got the Flyers trying to start Mitch Kaufmania. He's it's a shame that other guys can't put the puck in the net, but he'd probably have about 8 more points at this point.
Yeah. It's so nice with the expectations though. I love the Phillies. Obviously, I love going into it. Every game matters. It's kind of refreshing to watch a game where it's like if they win, cool. If they don't, sweet. They have like 6 draft picks in the first 2 rounds next year or something like that. So it's like, if they lose, all right, that's not bad either. So, but it's fun because there's reasons to be excited about this team, and but without the baggage of caring really. Like last night's game sucked, but it was horrible. But I still watched the entire thing along with the with the baseball game. But it's nice not caring as much.
Most definitely. All right. Well, listen, we'll be back at some point in the off season when things the hot stove starts to shake out. But go Birds.
Go someone else.
Yeah. Go Philly.
go Philly sports teams.
Go sports team.
There we go.
Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of